I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. The moment that I seen people talking about Oxford acknowledging the word isekai in the English dictionary, I knew this was going to happen. Now, I thought it was going to happen with the Japanese audiences and people looking at this and going, what are you talking about? That's not what that means. But no, thanks to IGN, no, it's all the anime fans that are right now extremely upset because they decided to take it down this massive rabbit hole and to these extremes that cause an uproar and everybody clicking on their article. But yes, for those that missed it, Oxford has acknowledged the term isekai as a Japanese genre of science or fantasy fiction featuring a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated to a different world. Different, strange, and unfamiliar world. Sorry. Also, an anime, manga, video game, etc. in this genre, frequently as a modifier. And that's not correct. That is not correct. That in Western terms and in English terms, it is correct. This is going to be one of those cases where the English language has sort of taken a word from another language and made it their own. The best example is otaku. Well, now, Oxford has otaku correct on their site. Let's be clear. But typically, when you ask somebody, what is an otaku? In English, they're going to say it's an anime fan. It's not actually true. In Japanese terms, an otaku is somebody that just has too much knowledge of something. They're a geek in something. You can be a train otaku, a car otaku, whatever. It's not specifically anime, manga, or light novel. But again, in English terms, we've co-opted it. We've changed it into meaning a massive fan of anime. And it's kind of an oddity there. It's just what happens with a lot of terms. And again, I think this is another case of that. And so the moment I seen this, I'm like, that's not really what isekai means. In its purest form, that's not what isekai means. Isekai in itself is not a genre. In a lot of websites for Japanese, if you look for book listings and stuff like that, or genre listings, it's going to have a qualifier on it, which I'm going to get into in a minute here. But let's get into the IGN outrage article. Let's see what they said here that caused everybody to be upset. They said isekai, the popular manga and anime genre, is now in the Oxford English Dictionary. Oxford English Dictionary's latest article added 23 Japanese words to its lexicon. Oxford Dictionary defines isekai as a Japanese genre of science or fantasy fiction featuring a protagonist who is transported to or reincarnated into a different world, a strange, unfamiliar world. While the isekai has been colloquially understood in the U.S. anime community as a genre of a character transported to a fantasy world, be it through a VR device like Sword Online or vehicle incidents with the white truck, the term has been slightly misapplied. According to Tokyo-based Twitch streamer Selena, isekai means the story takes place in a totally different world from our real world, meaning classic fantasy shows fans wouldn't consider to be isekai like Record of Lodoss War, and contemporary anime like Delicious in Dungeon and Frieren could be considered isekai. This is where Selena's not wrong. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, IGN takes it to the extreme and applies it to other things, which it shouldn't be applied to. And I'll get more of that in a minute. Turns out the anime community's popularized definition of isekai is referring to its subgenre, which is technically correct, not really, but anyways. They quoted Selena again saying, if it's some modern dude getting reincarnated into another world, it's called Isekai Tensei. There's the key thing. There's the qualifier, the additional thing that they added to it, which, like I said, is technically correct. So yes, IGN is technically correct, or at least Selena is correct, but IGN's not. There's the problem, is like IGN actually does some research by actually looking for a Tokyo-based person that's in Japan that would probably know about this, but then they start applying it to everything. And obviously, referencing Frieren and putting Frieren in your thumbnail is going to get a lot of clicks. And yes, a lot of controversy. So they can technically be right, but not technically be right, but not be technically wrong. Anyways, let me get into this. What is the problem here? I guess the best thing that I could start this out with is this quote from a Japanese user reacting to the Oxford Dictionary adding this, saying, Isekai otherworldly has been added to the Oxford Dictionary, the most authoritative dictionary in the English-speaking world. It appears to be confused with Isekai Tensei. Again, another person kind of pointing that out. That's not what you think it means. Now, let me break this down. Let me explain why essentially Oxford is wrong, but the English-speaking community is technically not wrong. Again, it's one of those cases where we've taken a word and we're changing it into something else. We're making it a genre in itself. And I do that myself. I'm not going to say that I've never used the term isekai to reference pretty much every transported or reincarnated type of stories. It's just what we've made it to be. That's like me saying that I'm an otaku. It's not really, it is technically what it means, but I'm specifying it as an anime fan. So let's get into this. What everything actually means. Again, isekai itself, isekai is different world, a fictional world, a world that is not our own. It doesn't have to be an addition or anything like that. It's just strictly, this story is about a world that is not our own. It in its rawest form, that's all isekai means. It doesn't mean being transported. It doesn't mean that I was reborn into the world. Let's get into typically what you'll find on different Japanese websites. If you go to a Japanese website and you look at the genre listings, typically what you'll see in there is not just isekai. You won't have this list of like, action, isekai, blah, 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 blah. You will see specifically Isekai Ten'i and Isekai Tensei. Isekai Ten'i is a transition to another world or transportation to another world. Somebody goes through a portal or something like that. That is Isekai Ten'i. With the other one, Isekai Tensei, this is probably the more obvious to most people, especially if you're a Mushoku Tensei fan or you're a fan of slime. A lot of those ones will have this in the title. This is where you actually get into a reincarnation to another world. You have been reincarnated. That's what the Tensei part is reincarnation. So like I said, the main key thing to here to remember is that we're essentially taking a short, just a single word into the English language, and we're co-opting it to mean this entire set of genres. But again, in Japanese, isekai in itself can mean a lot of things. That's why they put the qualifiers onto it, something additional to it, like Ten'i or Tensei. They give some sort of, description that somebody's going there. Because if they just say, hey, check out this isekai book, they're going to go, oh, it's a book about another world. They won't think, or I would assume, a lot of them, they could assume that, obviously. But some people might not assume that. They'll assume that it's just a story about another world. And yes, technically, you can find some Japanese book listing sites and manga sites that will put Frieren under a category of isekai / isekai ten'i / isekai tensei, because Frieren can be classified as another world. Now, a lot of people will not see that. They won't apply isekai to Frieren. Why? Because it's more focused to be classified as a fantasy. It's not classified as another world or anything like that. Because it kind of goes in the whole realm of watering down a genre. If you specify that something is an isekai, just because it's a different world, you're going to dilute the word to the point where it has no meaning. It's just like slice of life. You can technically classify slice of life as being literally anything. If I open up a story and it's about a slice of somebody's life by using the literal use of the term, yeah, everything is in a slice of life. But we don't do that. We don't do that because it dilutes the word. It dilutes it to the point where there's no meaning behind it. So we get very specific about what has to be a slice of life. It's the same with a different world or tensei. It's very specific. It's very specific when it's used. And like I said, it's most always used with some sort of transportation involved in order to specify that somebody went to that different world. Isekai is a different world. That's all. Isekai ten'i is a transition. Isekai tensei is a reincarnation. It has to have that qualifier. And like I said, if you look at any Japanese website, they're typically going to have that. Like, I think it was the website that Mushoku Tensei originally was published on. If you go there, you will have a listing, and it specifies Isekai Ten'i and Isekai Tensei. It never says it's strictly Isekai because they would... What? Why is this even on the website? It doesn't mean anything to... Like, it just means different world. What am I supposed to get from this? Again, you can have some websites that will specify Isekai alone, but again, they typically do have Isekai Tensei and Isekai Ten'i right after it. It's like all kind of grouped up together. So, in the end, yes, you can find Frieren under a listing of Isekai strictly, but it is not an Isekai Ten'i, and it's not an Isekai Tensei. They are typically going to classify Frieren as a fantasy. They're going to specify Delicious in Dungeon as a fantasy. Those are what those are for. Nier, no. It is technically, I don't know the full story of Nier, but I'm pretty sure based on what I've watched of the anime at least, it's our world. So it's not necessarily going to be classified as an isekai. Yes, it is a fictional world, but if we go in that realm, you're going to water down the word isekai to the point where it has no meaning. So you don't want to do that. Anyhow, that's what's going on. That's the confusion. Japan, I've seen a couple people in Japan, or at least they're writing Japanese and their Twitter shows they're in Japan, going, why are they listing isekai as pretty much what Isekai Tensei means? And then you have IGNs taking it to the extremes and saying that everything has to be Isekai then. And then you have everybody over here in the West that's going, no, Isekai means transported to another world. We've made it that. That's the key thing. That's the nutshell here. Does Isekai mean being transported to another world? No. Have we made it mean that? Yes. It has become that term. It has become that genre. We've done that. We've changed it into meaning what we want it to mean. It doesn't mean that we're wrong. It doesn't mean that we're right. But at the same time, that is what we've turned the word into. And that happens with everything. There's a lot of terms out there that its meaning eventually will change in something else because we've made it mean that. And that's the case here. Maybe Oxford's doing that final bump that we need to finally classify as a whole, that's what isekai means. Because I'm pretty sure if you go to, I'm pretty sure that Crunchyroll probably has an isekai genre category, even though that's not what it means. It's just, again, what we've made it become. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, don't be mad when somebody points out that's not what that means. It's an actually moment. It's the actually moment. We have to have the actually moments with our stuff. But I hope you guys found this video informative and it helps you out understanding what the outrage and the confusion is. Again, it's fine. Everything's an isekai. Everything's a isekai tensei. You can use the term however you want. That's just how it works. That's how the languages work. We make things into what we want to make them to be. And it doesn't really mean that we have to be upset at anybody in particular. So I hope you guys found this video informative and you liked this video. If you did, make sure that like button down below, comment. Let me know what you think of this whole situation. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super links, membership button down below. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much. Y'all take care.